Hello everyone, I'm LonestarK, and today I'm going to create a cover for a newly released Sega Genesis ROM hack called Ghostbusters Special Edition. This ROM hack was just put out by Billy Time Games and published on the romhacking.net website if you're interested in grabbing a copy of that. One of the cool things about this ROM hack is that you can play as any one of the four Ghostbusters, whereas in the unmodified game, you only had a choice between Peter and Ray and Egon. As a base for our cover, we're going to use the original Sega Genesis cover, and I'm going to be adding on to it. My idea is I'm going to add all four Ghostbusters to this cover. This is the movie still that we're going to be working with, and we're going to have quite a bit of issues with it. I can see right off the bat. The smoke effects, of course, obscures their feet, and in order to remove this background, I'm going to be using the fuzzy select tool. And you can adjust the threshold here on the bottom left. But as you can see, it's selecting quite a bit because some of the colors, particularly like their hair in certain spots, the color's just too close to the background. So it's going to make this difficult to just use this fuzzy select tool. And as you can see, I'm choosing different spots in the background to select. And here in front of Egon, you can see how in certain spots it's having an issue not selecting parts of his hair. And what I don't want to do is start to erase the background, but then I've got a selection somewhere else in the shot that's going to erase part of the Ghostbusters, which I want to preserve. So we might end up having to use this Lasso tool to just manually select around each of the Ghostbusters, which I didn't really want to have to do, but may end up doing it. I think this lasso tool is going to be difficult in this white smoke area, so let's try to erase this smoke using the fuzzy select tool. As you can see here along Egon's side here, it's the fuzzy select tools becoming increasingly difficult to use because Egon's jumpsuit is such a similar color to the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to use our lasso tool instead here. And what you're going to do is you just click and you're laying down these little circles, which I'm going to call nodes, and that's going to be the edges of our selection. Now you can move these nodes if you make a mistake like I did here. See, I want to get his proton pack as well. And I've already laid down so many nodes here from his ear down to his shoulder. And we're going to change those nodes. Now to do it, you just click and hold on the circle and then you drag it to where you want the new point to be. So we're going to move all these nodes that I just placed earlier, so that we're going to encircle the proton pack as well as Egon. Okay, so we've encircled them quite a bit here, so I'm going to pull out this node and we're going to complete the selection. So we're going to go all the way around, and then you're going to click on your first node, and then that'll create the selection. And now we're going to erase that. Let me add a little more using the rectangular select. And if you hold down shift, you can add to your selection. So I've added that box. Now we're going to go ahead and erase this, and as you can see now, the background around Egon is now been erased. And I'd much prefer to use this fuzzy select. It's much faster, but as you can see, the threshold and the colors, it's just not going to be an easy way to do that. Now we're almost done with Egon, but we still have some stray little particles, especially down near his feet. So we're going to try to remove those. I'm using the fuzzy select tool here to select the empty portion of the image now, and then I'm going to use the grow command under the selection menu to then make our selection, hopefully encase most of these particles by growing it. And then we go in with the eraser tool and we're going to erase it. Now, one issue with the white smoke background is now we've got kind of a halo effect around their feet and legs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the fuzzy select to select the empty portion, and then I'm going to grow that selection by a few pixels. So now our selection is kind of inside the white halo portion, and now we're going to go down and around the feet with the eraser, just hitting the edge of the eraser, so it's not an abrupt change. It looks a little more natural using the eraser tool, and I'm just getting rid of this white outline. Okay, now we're ready to select and isolate Egon from the rest of the image, and I'm just going to use this rectangular select to select it, and then I will to create a box selection, and then I will remove the empty portions that we created by using the fuzzy select, and then you're going to hold down Control when you click, and that will bring your selection down from that box to just around Egon. And we still have some stray particles here and there, so I'm going to clean those up and erase them. Okay, now to remove, I like to pull out. I'm going to pull out each individual Ghostbuster onto their own layer. That way I can move them around, because right now the way that they're standing is just going to be way too wide for our cover, so I'm going to bring them closer together. And to make that easier, after I've selected Egon and just Egon, I'm going to, under the edit menu, I'm going to select Cut, and then immediately I'm going to go back into the edit menu and select Paste. Not paste as a new layer, but just paste. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a floating selection over in our layer menu on the right hand side. And then what you do is you click that little plus icon to then make that floating selection its own layer. I find it makes it a lot easier doing it this way, because if you it'll maintain its original position, whereas if you paste as a new layer, it's just gonna paste it in a spot up in the top left corner rather than making it stay in its original position. And we're gonna rename this new layer Egon, because by the end of this we'll have each Ghostbuster is going to be on his own layer, and that way we can move each one around if need be. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing like what I had done with Egon, and I'm just going to try to remove the backgrounds. I'm going to use a combination of both the fuzzy select tool and the lasso tool to select around each Ghostbuster, and then I will erase the backgrounds. Okay, now that we have each of the Ghostbusters on their own layer, let's go ahead and move them around. Like I said, we're going to have to make them a little closer together so that they're going to fit on our new video game box art. And I'm just going to take a measurement here with a selection box. It'll tell you down at the bottom what size that box I just drew was. And it looks like it's pretty much square inside that border, so we're going to try to do the same thing over here with the Ghostbusters, just to get an idea of how the layout is going to be. Now I'm going to select our Ghostbusters. We're going to move them into our image. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little smaller so that we're just selecting just the Ghostbusters. And it'll make it a little more easier to manage when we move them over to our other image. And what you want to do in GIMP, you'll need to do is copy visible, not just copy. Because if you select copy, it's only going to copy the things from that one layer. But since we have our Ghostbusters each on their own layer, in order to copy all 4 of them, you'll have to select copy visible, which is going to copy all the visible stuff from all the layers within your selection box. And now we're going to move them over to our base cover. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale them down using the scale tool. And you can adjust the size of them using the edge, the corner, these little corner squares. And then you can move them with the center circle. You can move their position. And you really want to make sure that when you're scaling using the scale tool, that if you want to keep their proportions, you have to make sure that that little chain, that chain link in between the 2 dimension numbers are linked together. That way when it scales one of them, it'll automatically scale the other dimension as well. Otherwise you'll get the Ghostbusters here looking very like thin and tall or short, and it's not going to look right proportionally. And so I had an issue here where the layout wasn't looking just right, so I went back and I took a different copy of our Ghostbusters after kind of moving them a little bit, and now I'm going to do the same thing where I'm scaling them down, putting them in position, and the big thing here is going to be their feet. So I need to try to conceal their feet, and I might not be able to do that using all 4 Ghostbusters like this. I might end up having to break each one of these up into their own layer, and I want to do this after I kind of scale them down to the size they need to be, because if we imported each individual one and then I might scale them down differently, and then you'd have, Egon looking extremely big and bigger than Peter or Ray or vice versa. So I'm going to scale them here, and then once I have them scaled, I'm going to break them down into their individual layers so I can move them around, because I think I'm going to swap Ray here over to the right hand side because of his feet. I think would work better within this border. So we're just going to use our lasso tool to quickly go around each Ghostbuster, and then do like I did before with the copy and paste, and then paste, create from the floating selection. You click that little plus button, and that'll turn the floating selection into its own layer. And now we're going to move the Ghostbusters where we need them to conceal their feet behind this new border. Okay, so now I think I got them in a good position. We want to convert those back into a single layer rather than have them on individual, but I'm going to create these copies just as a backup, so we can easily go back if our merge doesn't work out right. So from our merged Ghostbusters, we want to cut off their legs flush with this bottom border. So we're going to use our, first we're going to turn off that layer so we can see what we're doing, and then we're going to use the lasso tool to stick nodes right along the edge of this gray border. Okay, now we got that. We're going to complete the box. And now we have the selection. You got to make sure that you've selected the merge layer over there that we created. And now we're going to erase their feet, and it's going to be flush with that edge. Now there is an issue here in the middle. Let me zoom in. I'll show you. Right here at the bottom of the Ghostbusters logo, it goes on top of that border, which we don't want because it makes their feet look a little weird there now. See? So what we're going to do is we're going to copy a portion of this border because it's got kind of a pattern to it, which is going to be difficult to recreate. So we're just going to use our square or rectangular select to copy a portion of that border, and then from that copy we are going to move it over to kind of complete this border so that the Ghostbusters logo is not in front of it. And our square is just slightly too big, so it looks like the border on that spot that we copied was a little wider than what we have here. And we want to conceal the edges of our boxes. We want to make sure that they kind of line up okay, so that's why we're using the eraser tool to make it a little more seamless so you don't see the edge of the paste that we put in there. Okay, so that looks pretty good, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to remove some of that white glow from the smoke on the other image, and I'm just going to use a gradient tool here, and we're going to fade from black to clear. And what we want to do is we want to select just the Ghostbusters. So what we're going to do is we'll do the fuzzy select, and you select the empty space around the Ghostbusters, and then you go up to select, and then you change it by clicking invert. So now instead of selecting the empty space, we're selecting the opposite of that, which is going to be our Ghostbusters. Now we use our gradient tool, and there we go. The gradient, we're adding a little black to their feet. We're darkening that whiteness. That's not enough, so let me try it again. That's better. Still not great, but it's better. Zoom in a little bit. Deselected so you can see it a little better. Still not great. I'm gonna try to go back. I'm gonna undo the select none and then undo the gradient. Let's see if we can get change that gradient just a little bit. Do it again. And you just click and you drag to create that line. I think that's a little bit better. I think that's probably good enough for what we want to do. So now I think our image is pretty much good. So what we're going to end up doing is now we're going to work on changing the title to the new Romhack title, which is going to be Ghostbusters Special Edition. And we're going to erase some of the legalese stuff there at the bottom to make room for Special Edition. So I'm just going to select around this text using our Lasso tool, and I created a new layer, and what we're going to do is just paint black within that selection. And for Special Edition, I'm going to go with what the Romhackers kind of did with their title screen, which is just a red and white gradient lettering. And I think that's gonna be good. Looks pretty good there. Now one thing I don't like is that, so when we blacked out the lettering, that blackness doesn't really match the background. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy a square from the background, and we're gonna use that to black it out rather than just a solid black. We'll get a little bit of the texture of the original box on there. So now that I've merged all that, then we want to go back to our original selection to select just that black stuff that we had painted before. And now what we're going to do is, after we select with that, we move to the other layer, and we're going to cut it, and then we're going to paste it and create a layer from that floating pasted selection. I'm going to before I rename that, let me move it down. Okay, now we're going to get rid of the cover up layers and the other layers that we just created before. So now we'll just have this new one, which we can then, now we'll rename cover up. And so now the blackness that we covered up, it looks a little more like the box. It's got a texture, the original black texture of the box, but we can still kind of see that edge. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use our blur tool here pretty soon. We're going to blur that textured black that we pasted in there so that we don't have such a hard edge, because it was slightly darker in some spots than before. Before I do that though, I'm going to create this a symmetry with these gray lines by blacking out some of them. I'm just going to move this box, this new black box over here. I'm going to put it right there underneath the N. There we go, right there. So now these gray lines on both sides are going to be, it's going to look more symmetrical. See how it looks on that side and now on this side. Okay, so now, like I said, we're gonna blur this this blackness. This texture black, I don't know if you can really see it there. It's got a hard line there. It doesn't blend well. So we're gonna blur. And what I did before we started blurring this is you expand the layer boundaries. So to do that, you just open up the context menu by selecting that layer over there, and then you select layer to image size. Because otherwise, if you didn't do that, there wouldn't be anything to blur. It would just be, you'd only be blurring the solid black. And what we're doing is we're blurring the texture black that we did with the empty space. Okay, so now we're all done, and there's the finished image. I think it looks pretty good. So I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've been creating these little game covers for a little over a year now. It's kind of developed into a fun little hobby for me, and it started out as just I had a ROM collection, and I was using RetroArch, and if you want to make it look nice, you throw some game covers on there and some screenshots. Well, when you have ROM hacks, there is no official game cover, and sometimes you luck out and you get a fan-made one, but most of the time there's not. And so this one here, I haven't played this game, and I don't know if it's good or not, but I was thinking maybe I'd add it to my collection, in which case I needed a cover for it. When I make these, I usually upload them to the Launchbox Games database. If you guys are interested in getting a copy of this image, you can get it from there.